what's going on, yeah? Sick and tired of 5 running up on the block, you know what I'm saying? Yo, still, they came around looking for you the other day. Word, bust it.
Informer, you know, say that I'm a stormy, I go blam. I like you boom boom down. Take the man that say that I'm a stormy, stamp somewhere down the lane. I like you boom boom down. Informer, you know, say that I'm a stormy, I go blam. I like you boom boom down. Take the man that say that I'm a stormy, stamp somewhere down the lane. I like you boom boom down. These are them gonna come in and they blow down my door. Rain it come pour through my window, so they put me in the back the car at the station. From that point on, I reach my destination.
You are listening to your WrestleMania edition of the Wrestling Informer here exclusively for the patrons and subscribers of the Dirty Sheets and the Dirty Sheets podcasts. It's been a few weeks since we've done a Wrestling Informer. We have been posting a lot of WrestleMania content over on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. We did a really early preview telling you the best place to bet everything. It was brought to you by MyBookie.ag, the sponsor of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. I did a show with Cav on the way back from Sacramento. Me and Austin have done a Night 1 WrestleMania preview, which also looks at the betting lines for Night 1. We make our predictions. But there hasn't really been too much news at all, which is crazy given it's WrestleMania season. But there have been some developments this week, which I can bring you. The main developments over the last couple of weeks have just been regarding ticket sales and the fact that WWE haven't been able to shift the tickets. There was a slight spike when The Rock and John Cena aligned, but the fact that The Rock hasn't been on TV since hasn't helped. That did an immediate 2,000 to 3,000 tickets, but since then, the WWE have been struggling and had to reduce their ticket prices this week. That has resulted in an increase in ticket sales, and both nights have moved past the first configuration. Now, I was the only one talking about configurations. I said the first configuration was set at 51,000, the second was set at 60,000, and then WWE would make the choice of going for the maximum, which would be 71,000. They have decided not to go for that maximum on either night. So, as things stand, WrestleMania Night 2 will be a sellout. There are a few hundred tickets knocking around. WWE have actually moved the prices up on those. So those who are looking to buy your tickets late for a cheaper price, that doesn't exist. That's not going to happen for Night 2. You're going to have to buy it through verified resale. And the verified resellers know that people are now desperate for tickets. So you missed your chance. WWE lowered the prices for Night 1 and Night 2. They lowered them extremely for Night 1, where tickets were available at one point for a third of the price. That's where I pulled the trigger on my Night 1 tickets. Night 2 didn't drop as much. They were around about half price at one point from the original prices, but they did get to that 60,000 marker. There will be 60,500 for Night 2. It is a sellout. At the moment, Night 1 has drastically improved since the reduction in ticket prices. They have around about 5,000 tickets that they still need to shift on the final day in the final few hours, but WWE are not lowering the prices on those either because they expect 5,000 desperate people who waited, who implemented this strategy that usually works, to now bite the bullet and pay those prices, and those 5,000 tickets should go. If they don't, what you'd probably be looking at, worst case scenario, would be 58,000 for Night 1 and a 60,500 sellout for Night 2. So overall, WWE have got there, but they're not going to be able to say they broke the record for revenue for last year because they had to significantly reduce the prices. Now, whether they say they did and whether they actually did are two different things. But I know, speaking to people, that they haven't, and they've had to bite the bullet here and reduce the prices. Otherwise, we would have been looking at 45,000 and 47,000 for Night 2. But it does set a bad precedent, because what does it really say to the people who paid full money for these tickets at the beginning? And that was a lot of people. That's 45k per night, who got involved with the early releases and the pre-sales and the two-night combo packages where people have paid thousands and thousands of pounds to go. I have got incredible seats for both nights, and across the 2 nights I paid $650 for my 2 tickets, and Austin did the same. So for 4 great tickets I've paid $1,300 plus the ridiculous booking fees that Ticketmaster add on, which has been something that has put a lot of people off. The unanimous consensus is that people were willing to bite the bullet and pay the prices, and then they tried to check out and they saw that Ticketmaster were adding on another 25% to what you were supposed to pay, which is absolutely ridiculous, and that has actually put a lot of people off. And in the end, people have stayed away from this Mania, but they've got there. They're going to get there. It's going to be a sellout for night 2, and night 1 will be just shy. But as I said, I reiterate, they've done it at reduced prices, with night 1 tickets going down to a third of the price at some point this week, which was around about Tuesday, Wednesday time. So the rehearsal for WrestleMania actually uniquely took place on Tuesday. They don't usually do that, but all of the matches were decided on Tuesday. They did a run through. This wasn't done in the stadium. Obviously, you can go down to the stadium and time out your entrances, which is basically just ironing out all of the kinks and cementing things down. But the actual matches, they were ironed out in the practice ring at the Fontainebleau Hotel on Tuesday night. So that really limits big changes. If there are any significant changes, they will be at the last minute, because WWE know exactly what they're doing, how long the show's going to be, who's going over, and everything as of Tuesday, with all the booking agents and everybody being involved with everything and running through everything as early as Tuesday night, with the exception of John Cena and Cody Rhodes, with John Cena getting into Las Vegas late. And usually another exception to that would be Roman Reigns, but no, Roman Reigns done and dusted. He was here Tuesday. Logan Paul, another one, done and dusted. He was here on Tuesday. Everybody came across either from Sacramento or in their own, or made their own flights, made their own flights from elsewhere, made their own way here to Vegas, and everything was ironed out on Tuesday. And in that rehearsal on Tuesday, the mystery opponent for Randy Orton was actually Joe Hendry. Now, I think Joe Hendry, for me, would be an underwhelming replacement for Kevin Owens if he was to come out, for me personally. But I do think it would get a pop from the crowd here in Vegas. It's a smart crowd, smarky crowd, and they would be fans of Joe Hendry, and I think they would respond positively for that. For me, it's somewhat underwhelming. I certainly expect Randy Orton to go over in that match, but in the rehearsal on Tuesday that I just mentioned, the opponent who wrestled against Randy Orton was Joe Hendry. So moving on with some other news here. Karrion Kross and AJ Styles, if they were to continue their feud after WrestleMania, that would be very, very fascinating in terms of who is going to come out on top. This is because both men are coming to the end of their current deals with the WWE, both of them. AJ Styles signed with the WWE in 2016, and he has constantly renewed 3-year deals. He hasn't had one of those 5-year deals. So AJ renewed in 2019 and renewed again in 2022. His deal was supposed to be up in 2025, but he owed time on that deal. So AJ is working through an expired contract and is working through owed dates. It's a significant amount. It will take him up to the summer, which is the same time when Karrion Kross's contract expires, September the 1st. This summer, he signed a 3-year deal in 2022, and it has been somewhat of an underwhelming acquisition. Karrion Kross really hasn't done too much. And the reason why I say it'd be so interesting if they resume their feud, why do I keep saying that word wrong? If they resume their feud, will be to see who comes out on top, because it could mean that WWE are essentially done with the loser of that feud. Now, this feud could conclude in good time and they could go on and do something else. But for me, it's a very, very interesting watch. If AJ loses that feud to Karrion Kross, what does he then go on and do? He's pretty much done everything in the company and he's definitely in the late stages of his career. If Karrion Kross loses to AJ Styles off the back of not being booked at WrestleMania, off the back of not winning the Andre the Giant Battle Royal last night, what's in his future? He's doing everything he can to get noticed on his social media. He's doing great stuff on Instagram. I actually think that Karrion Kross is a good character that they should do something with, even though I don't like the guy personally. But they don't seem to be pulling the trigger with him. And if he resumes that program with Styles and comes up on the losing end against an AJ Styles is at the latter end of his career, that would be an extremely interesting loss for me for Karrion Kross, and it could spell the end of his WWE tenure, which at the moment comes to the end of its current deal on September the 1st. Other interesting notes, you guys probably all know by now that Rusev and Aleister Black are back with the company. Aleister Black is going to debut on the first SmackDown after WrestleMania. Rusev is expected to debut this weekend. I would probably imagine he would debut in the Dominic Mysterio Intercontinental title match, and he would be the newest member of the Judgment Day. That seems to be a spot that would fit Rusev, and that would be the end of Finn Balor in the Judgment Day. That Dr. Britt Baker has also been spotted in the WWE hotel. Now, Britt Baker has some time to go on her contract, but if she's able to get out of the contract through a loophole where it is basically being explored if AEW contracts have any validity in terms of Tony Khan being able to extend them when he wants and being able to pay people a lot less when they aren't working. This is a different thing that Tony Khan has been doing lately on the higher paid contracts, and it's probably a smart thing to do. It's very Vince McMahon-esque. Before Tony Khan and the early deals of AEW was just paying people to do nothing. He oversigned a lot of people, and in the end they were just collecting full money, whether they were working, whether they were injured, no matter what the situation was. Tony Khan was paying out. Now Britt Baker isn't earning her full pay, and she'll have to work at the end of this deal, but it's not her choice to currently not be working on this deal. So she is exploring a legal loophole. And if Britt Baker is successful in wrangling her way out of AEW, because obviously she wants to be with the WWE, which is why she's currently located at the WWE hotel, then that will be interesting to see what happens with future people, because we know at the moment that Jon Moxley is tied down to a deal where he has 3 years where he has to work, and then there are 2 optional years on there where they can part ways. Now, that has to be mainly agreed to by Tony Khan. Tony Khan isn't going to let Jon Moxley go. So the contract essentially is, you have a 5-year deal, 3 years I'm definitely going to pay you, and then I'm going to pay you the other 2 years if I want to. And if you want to leave, then you only get to leave if I agree you agree you have to leave. But if I don't want to pay you, it doesn't have to be so mutual, because I'm in charge of your future and I can just leave you on the sidelines, or I can book you to lose every week. Now, Tony Khan actually doesn't do that, which is evident with this Mariah May situation, because Mariah May is on her way to the WWE. I've seen a lot of people saying that, but a lot of the stories are wrong. You should not expect Mariah May this weekend. You should not expect Mariah May to be popping up on Raw or on SmackDown. Mariah May's contract expires in the summer, so if Mariah May comes to the WWE, it's much more likely that she would debut in and around SummerSlam or the night after SummerSlam, maybe on that edition of Raw. So do not expect Mariah May this weekend. And while we're speaking about deals, we're going to close out with the Roman Reigns deal. Now, Roman Reigns has said a lot of controversial things this week when he spoke to Vanity Fair. He also dropped a promo on his Instagram talking about how he should have grabbed this company by the throat when he had the chance, and how he was underappreciated and whatnot. Well, if you watched that and thought it was a complete work, or it's some sort of storyline, or it's just Roman Reigns cutting a promo to build anticipation up for this match, you'd be wrong, because there's actually some truth to that. Roman Reigns isn't entirely happy with his situation. Roman Reigns isn't happy with his current contract negotiations to stay with the WWE. Now, WWE feel that Roman Reigns has a tremendous deal, and he does. He has the best deal in the company. Roman Reigns is currently making $4 million a year. That's $20 million over 5 years since he re-signed in 2021. Roman Reigns' deal ended in 2020. And it actually ended in 2019. In 2020, he was expected to work up to 2020 with the overtime that he was supposed to give in due to his leukemia diagnosis. But He left just before that. He owed him a few dates, one of them being WrestleMania 36, and he did not want to work with Goldberg, and he did not want to sign his new deal. Roman Reigns then returned to help WWE during COVID. He signed a big money, short-term deal for 1 year, and very quickly, 9 months into that deal, WWE tied him down to a 5-year contract, seeing that this tribal chief stuff was going to work, seeing that he was a cash cow working with Paul Heyman, seeing the response to it. They knew that they could not afford to lose Roman Reigns when crowds returned. The original plan was for Roman Reigns to come in and win the title and to build towards Roman Reigns dropping that title back to The Fiend. And that was changed very, very quickly when they saw what they had with Roman and Paul Heyman. So Roman Reigns got $4 million a year. He got a $20 million deal over 5 years. That was for 200 dates up until April 2026. This includes private travel. So he gets a private jet and he gets a separate hotel from the rest of the roster. And most of the time, he doesn't use that because Roman Reigns decides to come in straight into the city and then he leaves after the show's done or after his segment is done. For the new deal, Roman Reigns now wants $5 million a year. That's $25 million over 5 years for just 100 dates in total. So Roman Reigns wants more money and he wants to do half his dates. So during this current deal, he only did 200 dates, which works out to 40 dates per year. Roman Reigns now only wants to turn up 20 times a year during this 5-year deal. Now, that is not being agreed to, which is why Roman Reigns is asking for or telling Vanity Fair that he wants a shorter deal and he'll only work for the WWE for 2 more years. So the 1 year has left on his contract, and then he'll sign a 2-year extension, which will probably be exactly the same as what he's doing. So it will be the 200 date deal, but obviously worked out to a 2-year version of that. So it'll be 80 dates for 2 more years. But Roman Reigns doesn't want to do that deal. He wants to do a longer term deal where he works for 100 more dates. That will be 100 times more that you will see Roman Reigns for the rest of his career. He wants to come in and do 100 more appearances for the WWE after 2026 and leave, and he wants to get $25 million to do it. But what looks more likely is that Roman Reigns is going to do 2 more years for the WWE. He's going to get $8 million to do it. He's going to come in and do around about 80 dates, or maybe WWE and Roman will meet somewhere in the middle, so something like 60 dates. If you're thinking 200 dates is a lot and you haven't seen him 40 times a year, don't forget the WWE and Vince McMahon used Roman to relaunch their live show business at the start of COVID. So when COVID was done and live audiences came back, Roman Reigns was working on the house shows. Roman Reigns did a lot more television in 2021 and 22 and a lot more appearances than he did in 23, 24 and 25. So they front loaded a lot of those appearances, and now Roman Reigns looks like much more of a part-timer than he should have been, but WWE needed to reestablish that live business. So things are not well in the Roman Reigns camp entirely. Another part of that may be the fact that Roman Reigns, as things stand, isn't planned to go over tonight. And Roman Reigns, my understanding is, would have liked to have gone over. Last year, his family did not attend the show. And now Roman Reigns has brought his entire family here to Vegas, including his kids. And it would be good for them to see their dad go over. Roman Reigns obviously has won a lot more matches than he's lost in recent years, in fact, throughout his entire career. And this is definitely a Mania where Roman Reigns wanted to send his family home happy, wanted to win this match. It reminds me of WrestleMania 31, where Roman Reigns was supposed to go over, and 34, where his dad actually went on to complain about it because it was a late decision that Roman wasn't going over. He had a lot of his family there for both those shows, I think particularly 34, and the booking was changed late on. So This wasn't a case of it being changed. This was just a match that Roman Reigns wanted to win, but as things stand, Roman Reigns isn't going over in that match. So that's it for your WrestleMania edition of the Wrestling Informer. If I learn anything else between now and the start of the show, or between night 1 and night 2, I will drop it on an emergency edition of DS Breaking News, but I don't expect to. Everything has been very quiet for the last couple of weeks. There hasn't really been any major backstage drama. The main matches were established a while ago. I was the first person to break them here over on the Wrestling Informer, and obviously the Wrestling Informer is now being picked up by Ringside News. So now we have an actual trail for it rather than it just being behind this Patreon paywall. And obviously I appreciate you guys getting all of the news first. More or less 24 to 48 hours later, it has been the main stories have been republished on Ringside News, and now we know who's getting shit right and who's getting stuff wrong. And WrestleVotes and Dave Meltzer have had an absolutely disastrous WrestleMania season, which is no surprise to me whatsoever. That's it for me and this edition of the Wrestling Informer. Thanks for listening.